Good morning, afternoon, whenever you get to this. We are starting into Module 7, which is drafting our set design. You will see we're going to take a bunch of resource files from Campo Maldito. We will create our overview, we will set up our drawing. We'll be using either the theater that you drafted in the previous project, so you can use the Greenway Court Theater if you were on that mode. You can use the Gary Marshall if you were in that project. If you're in the Exit Theater, it probably won't fit, so you should probably get the Greenway Court file. And that resource file is here. Ooh, resource file. So there's a Greenway Court template you can download. It's right here. And then the rest of the resources for the project are here as well. The assignment is to take a show that has been designed in multiple different theater arrangements. So here's a case where it was in a thrust. Here's a case where it was in like a little proscenium space, right? Take this research document as a reference for the visual style of the project. And you can take a look at production photos from when we did this show. If you also feel like you would like to read a script, it is here at the bottom, so you can read the script, but you don't need it in order to do the project. So that's the overview of the situation. So you're going to review your design research, then you're going to draft the set to transfer this show into an alternate theater space, okay? It needs to include the floor, 2 desks, 2 chairs, beanbag chair, shelving, coffee table, etc., okay? So that is there. We go into the next page. Oh, it's going to be a video I'm going to make over for you. Okay, so let's assume that you downloaded that Greenway Court template, and now that is where you are. The first thing you're going to want to do is save as, so that, oh, you got to be in Vectorworks to do that. Save as so that you do not destroy the one that we made before, so you don't destroy your previous file. So I'm going to make a new folder, and this is going to be Campo Maldito. Transfer, create. Okay, so that's now there. And we'll save this as Greenway Court, Campo Maldito. And as usual, I'll put my name on it so that I can find my work later and save. Okay. So there are 2 ways to go about it, right? You can do what I just did, which is just save a copy of the file and use it in the project. The other option would be to reference the file, and we'll do that when we do lighting, so that you've done both strategies of using a template. So if instead of making a copy of it, which then you can accidentally break, you would rather leave the whole theater locked, then you can use a reference file. And we'll talk about that again for lighting, because in the lighting designer's workflow, that's much more valuable, because then if there are scenic updates, the ground plan will automatically update as that linked file is updated. In our case, we're just going to work directly in the file. So some of the things that we need are walls, floor, and various furnishings, okay? So we're going to start out on our scenery layer. And in this video, we will talk about walls, the floor, and our soft goods, our masking, okay, our masking curtains. So we're going to start on our scenery layer, and we're going to use our theater flat wall style, which you have been provided with. And if you were in the past, I would have made you do it yourself, but now you don't have to. So you go to your tiny house, your building shell tools, you go find your wall tool, right? Then we're going to come up here into the wall styles. And what you're looking for is a theater flat 3 inches, okay? So if you double click, you'll select that. I am going to open up its settings just so that you know what is going on with it real quick. So here is our theater flat. It is 3 inches thick, which is about how thick a theater flat is, you know, between 2.5 and 3 inches. So we just go with 3 inches so that it has that thickness on our drawings. The other thing that's going on with it, and I'll edit our components just so you can see it, right? It has a solid fill across the top. We don't want to have that hatch that we have for our building shell walls. It's just a regular white top on there. And then it has 2 different line weights for the pen. So the left side is 0.13 and the right pen is a little bit thicker at 0.25. And what that's going to give us is a wall that has a heavier line on one side than the other. And this is helpful in clarity in our drafting so that you can see in the ground plan which side of the wall is the facing surface, right? Which one is the front of the wall, or the finished surface of the wall. There are cases when you are making film and TV designs where it's a double-sided wall, right? There are cases in theater where it's a double-sided wall, and in that case, you would have heavy lines on both sides, and you would make a separate wall definition that was like a theater flat double-sided, right? So that it would indicate that facing that Luan cover, right? So that you're able to tell when you look at your drawing where the front sides of things are. In any case, that's what's happening there, but you don't have to do it because I already made it for you. You can just pick it up. A reminder from the carpenters in your life that it will make them happier if your walls come in multiples of 4 feet in length, right? 2 feet, 4 feet, right? That's because our flats are built with 4x8 sheet good stock. So if we can make walls that are 4 feet wide, 8 feet wide, 16 feet wide, whatever, multiples of 4, then we can use stock scenery in our build. It's not always possible. It's not the end of the world if it doesn't come out that way, but that's something that's helpful. So I'm going to go ahead and make a 16-foot wall as my upstage wall here. So I drag my cursor across and it's like, that's 14, and I'm going to hit tab, and then I'm going to turn it into 16 feet. It's going to let me put it wherever I want. I'm going to just leave it straight, flat, horizontal for now, and double click until it finishes that wall for me. Your walls may or may not have caps on both ends. That's something you can change over in your wall styles. You can make sure that the caps are here on both ends so that it looks right, and then you'll notice, it's easier when it's not selected, that it has a heavier line on the downstage side. And that's also something you can pay attention to as you create them, because the insertion mode, if you were to draw it from this side to that side, right, your upstage side would have that heavier line, and we want that heavier line facing downstage. So I'm going to go ahead and just plop that, I don't know, somewhere in here. I want a lot of the action to happen out on the thrust, so I'm not doing it way upstage, okay? The next thing I'm going to do is sort of define the playing space, although it is well defined by this situation. I'll define the playing space with a floor element. I'm going to create a separate layer for the floor. I'm going to put it below the scenery, and that's because Vectorworks stacks things. So I'm going to create a new design layer, calling it the floor. Okay. I'm going to place it actually underneath the scenery. So that means that if it were to overlap, it would sit below any items on that scenery layer. I'm going to just use a rectangle to draw this floor object. I'm going to just make it the whole width. You do what you feel is best, right? Look at this design, see how you want to convert it, but here's one way, right? In order to be able to add a wood floor texture, which is something that was in the original design, I need to make this not a 2D object, but a 3D object, right? It needs to have three-dimensional surface to it. However, I don't want it to be like, an extra riser taller. So in a case like that, where I just want to make sure I have a paint surface to work on, and only 3D objects can receive textures, which is what we're going to use to apply that paint surface, I'm going to extrude it 0.25, quarter of an inch. So it's super thin. It's still sitting on top of, oh no. I created that floor layer way up in the sky because I had most recently created an overhead thing. So those are good things to know, right? So we actually want to take its bottom Z back down to the 0 for this new layer. And we're going to come in and edit and make its elevation 0 relative to the ground plane. Oh, much better. Okay. Okay, great. So now I have a floor that's just barely sitting above the floor, and if I turn off my, I don't like doing that. I want to just turn off walls so I can see a little bit better, but That's okay. We'll just turn off these overhead beams for the moment so I can see into the space a little bit better. And now I have this floor surface that's just barely sitting above the actual deck of the stage. And that's where I wanted it to be, so that's great. So now I have a wall, I have a floor. If I want to have the door, the entrance door into this building, I can add that in this back wall. And then I'm going to get into some masking, some soft goods, and some furniture. So let's talk about soft goods first, and then we'll do a separate video to go over furniture and symbols. So we'll start with soft goods. It's a tool, a standard tool available in the event tool set over here, so the little stage. And it's down here at the bottom. It looks like stanchions, but this is the soft goods tool, and we use it for any kind of curtain, okay? Where can I hang curtains? Good question. In this space, I would want to hang curtains from existing grid pipes, which I cannot see because they're not in this drafting right now. Luckily, I have that whole CAD file I can reference to find them. If you are in the Gary Marshall, you can look at your catwalks as a reference for where there might be positions to add pipe, or you can just add pipe, or you can hang from the bottoms of your catwalks for those curtains. We're going to turn on this guy here, and we're going to figure out which pipes we would want to use as our curtain pipes. And I'm going to just use these ones here, this sort of mid-stage pipe, as our masking curtains for hiding the backstage. So I've picked up my curtain tool already. I've selected it. And then I can just come in and draw a line, double click to end it, and it opens up this whole object preferences, which is actually, oh boy, that's too much. It's doing too much. Much better. Okay, object preferences for soft goods. Okay. And its default is to make a thing that's like very long and skinny. So we'll look at that. Okay. So if you're in a space like the Gary Marshall, you can have it add a pipe. You can have it add pipe to support the curtain. Okay. If you are here in the Greenway Court Theater, you don't need to do that. You can give it information, right, about our curtains. They're here. So you can give it the width of those curtains. You can give pleat depth, right? There are 3D options. So if you click 3D options, it's going to open up another panel, and that's where you can choose what color it is. We're going to just let it be the dark gray that is the default for the like masking curtains. But if you were doing other kinds of curtains, you could change the color there in 3D options. And then there are a bunch of other sort of specifications that would allow Vectorworks to generate all of the information to create a shop order about getting curtains, right? The other thing it's going to do here is it's going to have a height, and our height is we're going to have to change it because 20 feet is going to be too tall in this space, but I'm going to go ahead and let it put that curtain in, and then we'll look at how it fits, right? Oh no, it's taller than the whole world. So we want to make it whatever height the beams were, whatever that height was, that went up to the height of our beam framing, because that's about where these pipes are going to be living. So I'm going to just give it the measurement 11'6" as the curtain height that will fit then in that space. So I can now that it exists, I can come in and change it from being 20 feet tall to being 11'6" tall. And that should make that curtain now fit inside of the theater. Great. I love that. And then I can, again, draw it on the other side as well. So we have curtains on both sides for masking the backstage, right? Again, if I was like, you know what? I really just want this curtain to be at the edge of the stage. I don't want it to be back here. I want to have an entrance or whatever. I need a wing. I need to mask a lighting boom, whatever. I can drag it down here, and then I can come in and I can have it add a pipe. And now it will add, the curtain tool itself will add a pipe across the top, which will connect it as accordingly, okay? Other problems I've created for myself. What layer am I in? I'm in the floor layer. And I don't want to be in the floor layer. I want to be in the soft goods layer. So I can come back over here and switch it in Object Info, my new curtain I just made. I can switch it over to the soft goods design layer. So now that is where it belongs. So now the floor is on the floor. Soft goods is on the soft goods. And I can just duplicate that curtain, line it up, and bring it across to the other side so that there are masking curtains on both sides, right? Cute. Wow, this is just a wildly asymmetrical space, but what else is new? Okay. So that's masking curtains, right? So now I have those, I have a wall, and I have a floor. I'm going to go ahead and save at this point, and then I'll come back in a separate video because this was mostly just a quick setup. And I'll talk about symbols, resources, other things, places to find furniture. And then we will, after that, talk about drafting our elevations for the set. Great. Okay.